Hello everyone, Jaina here from Grace Gate in Redmond. I just wanted to take a moment just to uh, check in, share a thought, and I wish I could see you guys all face to face, but this will have to do for now. I know for me, I mean, this is just wild, absolutely surreal. I feel like I process one layer and then I got to process another layer. Just absolutely surreal. And we started in our home, in our life this week, we started homeschooling, and oh my gosh, I already knew that teachers were absolutely amazing. But now I know you guys are even more amazing than I originally thought. I mean, I am a homebody. I love to be with my people, but I am like, whoa, this is so much time together. Whoa, we're homeschooling. Wow, this is fantastic. And I am thankful to be able to get out and to get some fresh air and to go on some walks and some hikes, the trail system right by my house. And I have these moments where I just feel so like empowered. I'm going to come out of this season stronger. I'm going to come out of this season healthier. And then I have other moments where truthfully, guys, I'm dipping Fritos into goat cheese while Googling how to candy pecans. So a little bit of ups and downs around here. But we're just taking it one day at a time, and I hope that you guys are giving yourself the grace to take it one day at a time as well. I wanted just to give a quick thought on fear. I know fear is a big idea. It's a big, complex, comprehensive topic idea. People experience it in varied degrees and varied ways. And so just a simple thought on fear. Fear is an essential part of being a human being. We have fear that is helpful, and then we have fear that is harmful. And I want to talk about the fear that's harmful for a minute. Fear is essentially the story that we tell ourselves. And so if we can take a step back and to figure out what is causing us to tell ourselves those stories. If we're telling ourselves stories right now of fear and of anxiety and of panic, we need to figure out, what is my perspective? What is the story I'm telling myself? A perspective is essentially, it's my point of view. It's how I see things. And we need to figure out, how am I viewing this? How am I framing this? What is the way that I'm allowing myself to look at this circumstance? And if the framework, if the perspective is one of fear and of anxiety, it's going to produce fear and it's going to produce anxiety. And the thing about fear is it never resolves itself. It never comes to a point of conclusion. Fear will always result in more fear. It will never result in peace. It will never result in faith. It will never result in hope. Fear will always result in fear. And so we get to take this opportunity and figure out, what's my perspective? How am I viewing this? How am I looking at this? Perspective is just the ability to understand what it is we are seeing. And I love how David in Psalm 61 talked about how he was processing fear. Fear, like I said, it's part of the human experience. And we are not new to this. Humanity is not new to these places and these seasons of great fear and great unknown. David wrote in Psalm 61, this is a man who understood what it was to not know how something was going to work out. He understood fear. He understood disease. He understood viruses. He understood what it was to be in circumstances that were outside of his control. And he wrote in Psalm 61, he said, "Hear my cry, O God, and listen to my prayer. From the end of the earth I call to you when my heart is faint. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I." And I just perceive him as, God, give me a different perspective. God, take me up higher. Get me out of this space where all I can see is fear. All I can see is anxiety. Lead me to a rock that's higher than me. And for some of you, that might mean turning the news off. For some of you, that might be putting your phone down and don't touch it again for a day or two. Like, God, I need a different perspective, which means I've got to get out of this loop that I keep staying in and the story I keep telling myself. Then he goes on to say, "For God, you've been my refuge, a strong tower against the enemy." And perspective in its simplest form is point of view, but it's also an art term. And it's the ability to take more than one object and to draw them appropriately in dimension to one another, in how they relate to one another. And David goes on to say, "God, you've been my refuge and a strong tower against the enemy." This is David utilizing the art of perspective to say, God, I see you and I see the circumstances, and God, I say that you are the strong tower. I say that you are the refuge. And he goes on to say, God, let me dwell in your tent forever, and let me take refuge under the shelter of your wings. See, here's the thing when we hear terms like shelter in place, we get to determine what place that is. Are we going to shelter in a place of faith, or are we going to shelter in a place of fear? Are we going to shelter in a place of hope? Or are we going to shelter in a place of hopelessness? Are we going to shelter in a place of peace? Or are we going to shelter in a place of panic? Are we going to shelter in a place of love? Or are we going to shelter in a place of scarcity and try to gather everything for ourselves? That's the amazing ability that every single human being has, is we get to determine where it is that we shelter within our own heart and within our own frame of mind. And we get to choose our perspective every day, again and again and again. So my prayer is for all of us that we could choose to shelter in a place of peace, that we could shelter in a place of prayer, that we could shelter in a place of hope, that we could shelter in a place of faith, that we could shelter in a place of God's presence. We are all in this together, so let's keep looking out for one another. Let's continue to pray. Let's continue to look for ways to help. Let's continue to look for, I saw one person said, let's be dealers of hope. And so I love you guys, and we're praying for you, and amen.